Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, Counter-Spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Historical crime drama, an episode of Crime Classics going back 69 years to April 14th, 1954, James Evans Fireman, how he extinguished a human torch. And we thank you for tuning in on this TGI Friday, 14th day of April, 104th day of the year, 261 days till we get to 2024. The first abolition society in the U.S. established, the Society for the Relief of Free Negroes Unlawfully Held in Bondage, organized in Philadelphia by Benjamin Franklin and Benjamin Rush. Noah Webster copyrighted the first edition of his dictionary on this date in 1828. In 1860, the first Pony Express rider reached Sacramento, California. 1865, President Lincoln shot in Ford's Theater by John Wilkes Booth. On that same date in 1865, Secretary of State William H. Seward and his family attacked in his home by Lewis Powell. 1894, Thomas Edison demonstrated the kinetoscope, a device for peep show viewing using photographs that flip in sequence, a precursor to movies. 1912, the British passenger liner RMS Titanic hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic and sunk the following morning with the loss of 1,503 lives. 1927, the first Volvo car premiered in Gothenburg, Sweden. 1935, Black Sunday, the worst dust storm of the U.S. Dust Bowl, swept across Oklahoma and Texas and neighboring areas. 1956, videotape first demonstrated at the NARTB show, National Association of Radio and Television Broadcasters. Now it's the NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters Convention in Chicago. 1958, the Soviet satellite Sputnik 2 fell from orbit after a mission duration of 162 days. 1964, a Delta rocket third-stage motor prematurely ignited in an assembly room at Cape Canaveral, killing 3 people. At the U.S. Academy Awards, a tie between Katharine Hepburn and Barbra Streisand resulted in the two sharing the Best Actress Oscar. In 1981, the first operational space shuttle, the Columbia, landed at Edwards Air Force Base after its first test flight.
What a way to come to California.
Welcome home, Columbia. Beautiful, beautiful.
Over 22 years of service, it completed 27 missions before disintegrating during re-entry near the end of its 28th mission on February 1, 2003, resulting in the deaths of all 7 crew members. 1986, in retaliation for the April 5th bombing of the La Belle discotheque in West Berlin, in which 2 U.S. servicemen were killed, President Reagan ordered major bombing raids against Tripoli and Benghazi in Libya, 60 people killed in those raids.
The Sandinistas, uncomfortable with the scrutiny and concern of their neighbors, have gone shopping for a more sympathetic hearing. They took their case to the United Nations and now to the International Court of Justice. This does little to advance a negotiated solution, but it makes sense if you're trying to evade the spotlight of responsibility.
President Reagan on this date back in 1986. By the way, I have an individual who continues to harass me all sorts of places. And they get upset that I have commented that from time to time, NASA, in search for spare parts, went searching on eBay. Now, if you don't believe that, on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, you can find the news article that I base that on. It was published in the New York Times on May 12th, 2002, and you can read the article. For parts, NASA goes boldly on eBay. So there you can actually see the story. I have it over on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. This guy probably can't see it because of some of his evil stuff that he said to me. I blocked it. Anyway, 2006, retired Army Major General John Batiste called for Donald Rumsfeld's resignation because he believed the defense secretary violated the principles of war planning when he decided to invade Iraq. And as a leader, he needs to be accountable for those actions, so he said.
Leaders need to be held accountable. By that I mean we went to war with a flawed war plan. We certainly had the troops necessary to win the fight to take down Saddam Hussein, but we in no way considered the hard work to win the peace.
Batiste, one of 6 retired generals demanding Rumsfeld step down, breaking a long tradition of the military steering clear of politics. Passing away on this date in history, several actors including Frederick March, Ellen Corby, also singers, musicians, Burl Ives, Anthony Newley, What Kind of Fool Am I? Also musician Don Ho, and Percy Sledge, When a Man Loves a Woman. Born on this date in history, Helen Keller's teacher Anne Sullivan, actor Sir John Gielgud, actor Rod Steiger, the coal miner's daughter Loretta Lynn, whom we lost last year at the age of 90, and comedian Richard Jeni. There was a book about this man and a movie about this man. Whistleblower, policeman Frank Serpico, 87 today. Actress Julie Christie is 83. Baseball player-manager Pete Rose, 82. The 12th Doctor Who, Peter Capaldi, is 65. Actor, stand-up comedian, won 3 Emmy Awards during his time. And has a comedy club in Las Vegas, Brad Garrett's Comedy Club at the MGM Grand Hotel. Brad Garrett, 63 years old today. From 16 Candles Breakfast Club in his younger years, and then became an adult in USA's The Dead Zone. Anthony Michael Hall, 55 today. Won an Academy Award for The Pianist. Adrian Brody, 49. Pro wrestler Lita, Amy Dumas, who was at WrestleMania couple of weeks ago, 48 years old, still performing at a high level. Actress Sarah Michelle Gellar, Buffy, 46 years old. And a Best Supporting Actress Award nomination for Little Miss Sunshine, and she was also in Scream Queens on Fox, Abigail Breslin, 26. Those some of the people who celebrate the 14th day of April as their birthday. If this is your birthday...
Hi, we're the 4 freshmen, and we just want to say... Happy birthday to you!
And from 69 years ago, April 14th, 1954, Crime Classics, here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now on this Friday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, we go back 69 years, April 14th, 1954, an episode of Crime Classics.
Good evening. This is Crime Classics. I am Thomas Hyland, with another true story of crime. Listen. Going to a fire in 1826. A team of horses pulling the fire engine of the Norwich Union Boys' firehouse. Arriving at a fire. The Norwich Union Boys doing what they best like to do, snuffing out fires in Manchester, England. There goes one of the Norwich Union Boys right into the thick of it, where smoke and flame is the densest, chopping things the way he was taught to do. The trouble is, he was a novice. He hadn't learned to discriminate.
Help me! Help me! Yes, sir.
Tonight, my report to you on James Evans Fireman, how he extinguished a human torch.
Crime Classics, a series of true crime stories taken from the records and newspapers of every land, from every time. Your host each week, Mr. Thomas Hyland, connoisseur of crime, student of violence, and teller of murders. Now, once again, Mr. Thomas Hyland.
Civic-minded people called Manchester Cottonopolis, But those who could never forget the Peterloo Massacre called it the City of Orphans, among other epithets, some in Gaelic. This massacre, you'll remember, was simply a matter of shooting and riding down and thereby slaughtering some 1,000 citizens who gathered in a park to protest the Corn Laws. Mary Warden's mother and father had the distinction of being trampled to death by the same cavalryman, and on Mary Warden's 10th birthday, too. And what happened to Mary Warden is this. She was removed immediately to Mother Winnie Penn's Souls Harbor Orphanage, where she spent the next 6 years learning to be a drudge. Then, one day...
That one there, Winnie Penn.
Mary Warden?
Aye, if that be her name.
She'll scrub for you and cook and earn her keep.
Of dexterity. Tell me that.
With a needle, her fingers fly like a dooley-bird.
Aye. How old is she?
She'd pass for 20, couldn't she?
But she's only...
16. What do you say, Mr. Price?
Call her to the wire. Let me have a look at her.
Mary. Mary Warden, come. Stop twisting your hair, Mary, and stand you still. Here's a gent thinking of taking you away from us.
Would you like to go with me, child? Child?
Shy, ain't we today, Mary? Well, come you here. Bend your head close, and I'll tell you a thing that'll take away your shyness.
No.
Mary.
You old crow.
Fit for the stage she is. Ah, Mary. We'll miss her.
I bend my head close. You'll try to stretch my ear from my head. You old golly knacker.
Them that don't appreciate the gentle and the loving kindness.
Mister?
I'm Mr. Price.
Take me away from here.
You want to go away with me?
I must get out of here before she whips the skin fair off me.
I ask you something, child.
I must get out of here.
With me? With me?
Yes, sir.
Winnie Penn.
Them that don't appreciate...
She wants to go with me.
£20, same as the rest.
£20? Well, that's more than I...
Oh, I want to go away, sir. With you, sir. I wouldn't go with anybody else.
Do you now? Oh, do you now?
Oh, yes. Yes.
So it was that Mary Warden was indentured to Thomas Price. At the wage of £4 a year, Mary would be free to go her own way at the age of 21. That is, if Mr. Price did not fine her for not obeying him in whatever was his whim. And he was nothing if not whimsical. Now, while Mr. Price was situating Mary in the back room of his factory, seeing that she was comfortable in her new position and all, let's look in on the firehouse of the Norwich Union boys. A young man, James Evans by name, has just passed all the tests in order to become a fireman.
So here are your buttons.
Taddy, Chief.
And here your badge.
Taddy, sir.
And you must keep them polished all the time.
Yes, sir.
And notice the raised figures on button and badge. Crouched panther for always alert, the rose for courtesy, the coiled serpent for neatness.
Yes, sir.
And you're one of us, a Norwich Union boy.
Chief.
Yes, Evans?
Thank you for everything.
Oh, of course.
And I want to tell you this, that it is an honour to serve under the greatest net man in the business.
Have your buttons sewn on, Evans. Come back and we'll have a game.
Oh, yes, sir. Do you...
Of course we do.
Buttons?
Anything in the line of clothes and buttons and fabrics.
I want these sewn on.
Oh, then it's a fireman you are, eh?
A Norwich Union boy.
Ah. Mary. This one's a Norwich Union boy and he needs his buttons sewed too. You just go through that gate, sir, and Mary'll sew 'em in an inch. And 12 buttons is a farthing, young sir. Daddy-o. I'll be packing the fustian, Mary. Hey to me when you're done.
Taddy for picking up for me. They're all over the floor.
I'll get them.
Oh, let me.
Let me.
Fumbly fingers, they tremble.
Give them to me.
Oh, God.
Give them to me. Oh, they're chill.
And your hands so warm.
Then meet me.
Tonight, where the River Medlock turns left past Crowley's Landing at 12 o'clock. You want me to sneak out, do you not?
Does not your father let you...
Oh, my father. I'm an indentured servant, I am.
Oh, my.
And James Evans, sensitive boy, was lost forever. This poor and beautiful girl no better than a slave. And all day long his hands felt the touch of her hands, and all day long he remembered the scent and texture of her golden hair as she leaned to bite off the thread. Suddenly life became complicated. A life that before this meeting had only poles and nets and ladders and hooks and solidarity meetings and hoses and hound mascots. Now suddenly there was a woman. That night by the river...
How did you get out?
As he slept, I stole keys from him.
Poor Mary. Poor Mary.
And what will you do for your poor Mary?
My poor Mary?
For I am yours.
What shall I do for you?
Go to him who's bought me and offer him the price he paid.
Pay off your indenture?
£20.
Oh.
Do you have all that much money?
It's all I have.
Oh, then you'll be penniless and I will. But with our love, we'll be richer than that dicky harness.
Yes. And I have a good job.
And I'll make you a good home.
And then put your hand in mine. Mary. Pretend...
Pretend what?
That I've paid Mr. Price, and you no longer belong to him, and that your fancies are free, yet you can think of no one but me. Oh, Mary.
I cannot pretend it when it's reality.
Tomorrow, I will go to him.
Then perhaps tomorrow it will be reality.
No.
But,
no.
Mr. Price.
What's the matter with you, Fireman? You can't take no for an answer.
But why?
She's a good girl, and she sews like a cherub, and she scrubs like an angel. And besides, I have a contract with Mother Winnie Penn, and I have no intention...
£21.
Not 100.
But she's not meant to be indentured, not such as she, as lowly as she, a darling. Why laughter? At such a time, why laughter?
You love her. You love her. Truly and without doubt. Tell me, sir.
What?
A love of the poets, sweet and soaring, or a pitying love like Sir Mumford and Fanny? Or is it...
I love her, and I wish to purchase her out of bondage.
Then let me tell you, sir, it'll never be. For myself, I have plans. When she can sew nimbly as I like, and when she cooks with smiling skillet as I like, and she keeps house in her manner neatly, then I could do worse than to take her as a wife. And what do you say to that, young fireman?
A pox to you.
Pox to him.
That's exactly what I told him.
He wants to marry me.
That's exactly what he told me.
I wouldn't marry him if he were Lord Duncan and all his birds.
Well, then here's what he could do. Simply keep you indebted to him for as long as he wants, by fines, by whatever.
I'd go to the courts.
And they would uphold him and not you.
Then what will you do for me?
Pretend.
What?
There's a world, a wonderful world when you pretend. Then anything can be yours for as long as you pretend.
James.
I do it all the time.
James.
I pretend that you are mine. Pretending is...
James, when I leave you, when I return to my straw in the draught, shall I pretend it's a palace bed warmed by a fire of burning oak? And shall I pretend that Mr. Price is a prince?
What would you have me do?
Oh, rid me of him.
How?
You have your buttons, James.
Yes, I have.
Therefore, you have a good head upon you and a strong back.
I'm a Norwich Union boy.
Oh, yes, you are. Then make a plan and follow it. Rid me of him.
I will.
Swear it?
I swear it.
Oh, James.
Yes?
Let's pretend there is no Mr. Price. Let's pretend I'm free for a while. For a little while.
April 14th, 1954, Crime Classics here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. The news from 69 years ago today follows these important messages from your favorite radio station. Just when you thought it couldn't get any better, Mike Lindell and MyPillow launching the MyPillow 2.0. Now, when Mike invented MyPillow, it had everything you could want in a pillow. Now, nearly 20 years later, he's discovered a new technology that makes MyPillow even better. Of course, the patented adjustable fill of the original MyPillow, but now with brand new fabric with a temperature-regulating thread, it's the softest, smoothest, and coolest pillow you'll ever own. Say goodbye to tossing and turning and flipping your pillow over in the middle of the night. And more great news on the MyPillow 2.0 buy one, get one free offer with my promo code Wyatt. MyPillow 2.0 is 100% made in the USA, 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio podcast square to receive the MyPillow 2.0 buy one, get one free offer. Use my promo code Wyatt or call 1-800-928-4715. Thanks for spending part of your Friday with us here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, an episode of Crime Classics, the Elias Lewis production, as it was originally broadcast on Wednesday, 9:30 in the evening, April 14th, 1954. In the newspapers of that Wednesday, 69 years ago, these were some of the headlines. The most sensational security case since the dawn of the atomic energy age broke yesterday around the lean, nervous figure of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the man who directed the building of the first A-bomb and one of the first to conceive the hydrogen bomb. By personal order yesterday of President Eisenhower, Oppenheimer has been barred from all access to secret data and suspended as one of the nation's foremost atomic energy defense advisors, pending a check of 16 FBI-gathered charges against him. One major charge that he fought and delayed development of the H-bomb. Other allegations link the world-famous scientist with known communists and communist activities, even after he took charge in 1942 of the A-bomb development program at Los Alamos, New Mexico. The United States and Britain agreed yesterday to push for formation of a new 10-nation military lineup in the Pacific, like NATO, to halt communist expansion in Southeast Asia. U.S. Secretary of State John Foster Dulles flew to Paris from London for French approval. French and American sources said he was sure to get it. A joint British-U.S. statement issued in London assailed communist-led aggression in Indochina and read threats to Southeast Asian security. It added, accordingly, we are ready to take part with the other countries principally concerned in an examination of the possibility of establishing a collective defense within the framework of the Charter of the United Nations Organization to assure the peace, security, and freedom of Southeast Asia and the Western Pacific. Meanwhile, French planes parachuted tons of ammunition to Dien Bien Phu's defenders yesterday and plastered rebel besiegers on the rim with high-explosive and flaming gasoline bombs. French patrols rallied out to knock out new rebel trench positions. Warplanes hit heavily the eastern fringes around the fort, where the communist-led Viet Minh launched 6 counterattacks in the last 3 days, seeking to take back a dominating hill, which the French captured last Saturday. The scandal-rocked Federal Housing Administration became the center of 2 congressional investigations last night, and President Eisenhower put a new man in charge of the agency. Senator Capehart announced that the Senate Banking Committee would open today a full and complete inquiry into charges that householders were fleeced by high-pressure home repair salesmen and that apartment house promoters reap millions of getting government-guaranteed loans far in excess of the cost of their projects. 2 boys detained since boyhood behind the Iron Curtain came home to New York yesterday as young men, and as ever, a mother waited to greet them, and in her eyes, they were still boys. Mrs. Lydia Georgiou, who less than a year ago made as heartbreaking a choice as ever, faced a woman, her country, above her sons. And she said, "Thank God we are together again." The attractive 46-year-old woman managed a bright, if misty, smile and told reporters, "You can see how wonderfully happy I am. They look wonderful to me. Just look at me, and you can see how I feel." Well, with Arturo Toscanini in retirement, the NBC Symphony Orchestra will be broken up and replaced on the NBC radio network next fall by the Boston Symphony. Sylvester L. Weber of the National Broadcasting Company, the president, said yesterday the NBC Symphony, created 17 years ago for the Italian maestro, will be rearranged into smaller orchestra units to serve the requirements of NBC. Toscanini, now 87, announced his decision to retire after his last concert of the season, April 4th. And former President Truman said yesterday he plans eventually to turn over all his official papers to the U.S., but not until they've been indexed, quoting, so they can be read and studied. Those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Wednesday, April 14th, 1950, on your radio, Crime Classics, which continues now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
And there, where the river Medlock turned left past Crowley's Landing, the cricket sang, and the lovers spoke of love, and made promises.
A way to rid him is already forming in my brain.
Which is the way the evening went.
You are listening to Crime Classics and your host, Thomas Hyland.
Elliot Lewis did some amazing radio work, and a lot of it really spooky in the 50s. April 14th, 1954, Crime Classics on this Friday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. We'll head out west on Saturday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, an episode of Fort Laramie starring Raymond Burr from 67 years ago, April 15th, 1956. Stagecoach stop. Mrs. Kleinhexel and her giggly daughter visit the post during the fort's ball, while Yellow Horse may break out of the stockade. That's coming up on Saturday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. But now let's wrap up this Friday edition of Crime Classics from 69 years ago, April 14th, 1954.
And now once again, Thomas Hyland and the second act of Crime Classics, and his report to you on James Evans Fireman, how he extinguished a human torch.
To settle any arguments, it was Vanderheide who in 1670 invented the hose. A year later, he stumbled upon the principle of the suction pipe, and, putting the two together, it enabled the fire engine to be some distance away from both the fire and the source of water. Before Vanderheide, fires were fought with squeezing streams of water from leather bags. It should be said that in this era, things mostly burned to the ground. In the era we are concerned with, the 1820s, the city of Manchester depended upon 3 Newsham fire engines, manned by 3 fire companies, respectively. And the company that was wanted most was the Norwich Union Boys. And the most recent recruit of this crack company was a crack youth named James Evans. He knew a lady on Bent Farthington Street who sold ducks.
Here's a plump one, James, lad. Enough meat and fatty on him for bread and spooning.
Sophie?
Pluck him for you before you can say Jack Renison. Saved him for you, I did, knowing as how you likes your bird come Friday.
Sophie.
What you want, James, lad?
A favour.
No, what could a handsome lad like you be wanting, with 12 buttons a-gleam and a badge a-shining? What could you be wanting, lad?
There's a girl.
Ah, then you'll be needing another duck, and you have no money to pay poor Sophie, and you're going to stand and wheedle and make poor Sophie...
Isn't that at all?
And you don't want something from poor Sophie, and for which you're not going to pay her.
The fact is, what I want, I'm going to pay you.
Good boy.
There's a girl, and she's indentured to Mr. Price.
Now, which Mr. Price be that be?
The cloth man in Marsden Square.
Know him? Boy's a pigeon now and about.
Go to him, Sophie, and ask whether you can borrow this girl of his, this Mary Wharton, for the day, for some work you need done.
What kind of work would that be?
Well, cleaning, sorting the feathers for ticking and pillows, and I'll give you the money to pay him.
Ah.
Will you do it?
Well...
Go to him, hire her for today, and keep her at your house tonight, and deliver her back tomorrow.
And money to keep me mouth shut for whatever's going to happen.
£10 for all of it.
You're a one, ain't you, James?
Will you do it?
Of course, dear lad, of course.
Now then, you see how it's done?
Yes.
Let's see you do it. Now, here's the cloth. Put the thread through here and here, then loop over, then through here and here, loop, then right through here, and the machine is ready to sew. How you do it, Mary?
Well, I want to, Mr. Price.
Yeah, good. You've done it, girl. You know how to make a single-thread chain on a sewing machine.
Oh, I'm glad.
Mary.
Yes, Mr. Price.
Your fingers will not be stuck with holes anymore. The reason I bought this machine.
You're concerned for my fingers, Mr. Price?
Aye, for your fingers, and your hands, and your hair.
Oh, what are you trying to say to me, Mr. Price?
You're comely. I noticed this first when you were behind the wire at Mother Winnie Penn's.
Oh, but I'm just an indentured maid, sir. And the way you speak to me, as if I were a maid who's being wooed.
Oh, Mary.
Ducks and pidgeys.
Wants none today.
Aye now, Mr. Price. Aye now, lass.
Good morrow, Auntie Sophie, and we've meat enough without your birds, but carry on.
But I didn't climb these stairs for just a selling. No, indeed. Hello, lass.
Hello.
I heard that you were a one for cleaning.
Oh?
What's this?
I need a cleaning girl, I do.
Oh?
And of money to pay for her. £1 till tomorrow morning.
Oh, well, a pound's a pound, and in the pockets it's sound, I always thinks. What do you say, girl? What do you say, Mary?
Whatever you want.
And tomorrow when you come back, we can take up the conversation we were having.
Yes.
Here's the £1 then, Mr. Price.
Carry on. Have a good cleaning for Auntie Sophie, girl.
Oh, I will indeed.
Come along, lass.
Auntie Sophie.
Yes, lass?
James Evans sent you to me.
La.
To take me away for a night and a day. La. Oh, he's a one, isn't he?
La.
Oh, him and his 12 brass buttons.
Oh, my.
I sewed them all on. All of them.
Oh, my. Ducks and pidgeys and ducks, ool-my,
That night, that very night.
Fire! Fire!
Fire in the cloth factory of Mr. Price. How it started, no one knew, but the hue and cry went up.
Fire! Fire!
And there was flame and smoke and shouts of alarm. And first on the scene, you guessed it, the Norwich Union boys. And first running up the steps, you guessed it, James Evans, axe in hand. First in the factory loft. The vision obscured, he went to work. Very good boy with the axe.
Help me! Help me!
Mr. Price?
I've caught on fire! Help me!
Where are you?
Help me! Help me!
They saved most of the factory, the Norwich Union boys did. The fustian vats, the sewing machine, and the main bales. The one thing they didn't save, which lowered their score considerably, was Mr. Price. He was found in some ashes with an axe wound in his head. Then suddenly everyone turned on the Norwich Union boys. Careless with the axe, they were called. Wanton, and worse, murderers. So an investigation was held, and it was soon determined that James Evans was the fireman chopping closest to where the body was found.
And then what happened?
Well, Chief, it was smoky, and the flames were fairly licking at me buttons, and...
Rossiter says he heard someone cry out, as if to say, help me, help me.
Well, there was such clamour and excitement, Chief Mumsley.
Rossiter said he thought he saw, through the smoke, of course, a human torch.
Possibly.
Then you admit it. It is possible that there was an outcry, and it is possible that there was a human torch.
Yes, sir.
And you also must admit it, that you were close by wielding the axe.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, it is possible that you delivered the axe blow, which found its mark in Mr. Price's head.
Yes, sir.
There is a noise, you know. A nasty noise. People speak of the Norwich Union boys and sneer. People speak of wanton murder.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, for the good of the Norwich Union, you understand. Therefore, I must report this to the police and hand you over to them.
Sir?
Yes?
It was an accident.
Oh.
I admit I felled Mr. Price.
Oh, no.
I thought he was a flaming bale of rags.
Oh, no.
And I struck at the bad part to chop it apart from the good part, as I'd been taught.
No.
I must tell you, sir, I put out the fire. If the fire happened to be a human torch, and I could not know it then, if it happened to be a torch, well, sir, I put it out as I'd been taught.
Oh, now.
And 2 weeks later in court, that was the boy's defense. And while he said it...
I was putting out a fire.
And while he said it, he looked so handsome standing there and so brave. 12 brass buttons and his shining badge, with a shaft of morning sun twisting through his curls. The stance he took, he seemed somehow a symbol, as if he stood between a hungry fire and a helpless child. And if he had but to wish it, the fire would go out like that. As a matter of fact, just after the jury brought in the verdict, the judge made a statement.
I must commend the gentlemen of the jury for the verdict they have rendered. Not guilty, they have said. James Evans, approach the bench. Closer, boy. Boy, fireman, I imagine often what it is to face the flames. Sometimes, I must tell you this, when I hear the clangor of the fire engine, I hasten to where the conflagration is, and I stand and watch the consuming as the tongues of flame leap up. Leap up! What a brave man you must be to walk into those infernos. I know you must be brave, for I only stand and watch, and I shiver. And how it must be to be like you are, a hero of the flame, master of it, slayer of it. You are a hero, boy, and that you, overzealous, have made a mistake, and put axe to a human being should not be held against you. If you will approach yet closer, I will shake your hand.
And later, the judge, Judge Wilcox was his name, married the two lovers, James Evans and Mary Warden, and became a great friend of the family. The three of them would sit there in front of the fireplace and just stare at the flames for hours.
In just a moment, Thomas Hyland will tell you about next week's crime classic. James Evans, tonight's crime classic, was adapted from the original court reports and newspaper accounts by Morton Fine and David Friedkin. The music was composed and conducted by Bernard Herrmann. And the program is produced and directed by Elliott Lewis. Thomas Hyland is portrayed on radio by Lou Merrill. In tonight's story, Alastair Duncan was heard as James, Betty Harford as Mary, and Ben Wright as Mr. Price. Featured in the cast were Paula Winslow, Florence Walcott, and Richard Peel. Bob Lamont speaking. And here again is Thomas Hyland.
Next week, Rome, Italy, in the year 1500. At that time, a girl's brother did her a favor, a big favor, but it wasn't easy. It's listed in my files as Cesare Borgia, his most difficult murder. Thank you. Good night.
April 14th, 1954, Crime Classics on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. I want to thank all of our friends who have used the Buy Me a Copy link at classicradio.stream to help us acquire additional classic radio collections and also to help us maintain our distribution channels. Money's tight right now. I know it is for you. It is for us as well. So any help you can give at classicradio.stream is greatly appreciated. You can also at classicradio.stream hear all 21 hours of classic radio theater each and every week. You can also learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. That's at classicradio.stream. Thanks for tuning in. Tell all your friends the greatest radio shows of all time are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station. Have a great weekend.